The apartment was strangely quiet that morning in San Borja. Soft daylight crept through the curtains, touching the walls of a home that, to the outside world, had always looked warm and full of life. Somewhere inside, a child sat in another room, lost in a video game, unaware that the next few minutes would divide his life into a before and an after. Behind a closed bedroom door, voices rose, first sharp, then trembling. One belonged to a woman whose face millions recognized from TikTok, Marilyn Martinez, the fitness influencer who seemed to radiate energy, discipline, and joy. The other belonged to the man who appeared beside her in countless videos, smiling, dancing, playing the part of the perfect partner. But what was happening in that room did not match the life they projected online. A sudden crash, a muffled scream, then silence, heavy, unnatural, wrong. Within moments, everything inside that apartment would change forever. A storyline built over years of love, of family, of a carefully curated digital life would shatter in the span of a breath. Marilyn Martinez was 29 years old when she died, but her journey to social media stardom had been years in the making. Born and raised in Peru, Marilyn was, by all accounts, a woman driven by ambition and a genuine desire to help others. She wasn't born into privilege or handed opportunities on a silver platter. Everything she built herself. Marilyn was studying nutrition and had trained as a fitness coach. Those who knew her described her as disciplined, focused, and deeply committed to wellness. She didn't just talk about fitness, she lived it. Every workout, every meal plan, every piece of advice she shared came from her own experience, her own struggles, her own victories. But it was on TikTok where Marilyn truly found her voice. Using a handle believed to be something like Marilyn.fitmommy, she began sharing her fitness journey with the world. Her content was a mix of workout routines, body transformation videos, health tips, and motivational messages. But she didn't stop there. Marilyn also posted dance videos, humorous sketches, and glimpses into her family life. She featured her husband Alexander in many videos, showing what appeared to be a fun, loving, supportive relationship, and people responded. Marilyn's authenticity, her relatability, her genuine passion for helping others, it all resonated. By early 2023, she had amassed somewhere between 445,000 and 600,000 followers on TikTok, with an additional 20,000 on Instagram. In Peru's influencer landscape, those numbers meant something. Marilyn wasn't just another fitness account. She was a recognizable personality, someone brands wanted to work with, someone people looked up to. She was also a mother to an 11-year-old son. While court documents protect his identity by using only his initials, it's clear from family statements that Marilyn adored him and was working hard to build a future for both of them. From the outside looking in, Marilyn had achieved what so many people dream of. She was turning her passion into a career, building an audience, creating content that made a difference. She seemed happy, fulfilled, living proof that hard work and authenticity could lead to success. But as we'll see, that image of success and happiness was hiding a dark, dangerous secret. Alexander Israel Pinedo Barron was 46 years old when he murdered his wife, approximately 15 years older than Marilyn. But their relationship stretched back much further than you might expect. Marilyn and Alexander had been together for somewhere between 12 and 15 years, which means they met when Marilyn was just a teenager, probably around 17 years old. Think about that for a moment. A 30-something man beginning a relationship with a teenage girl. Already, there's an inherent power imbalance, an inequality that colors everything that comes after. Alexander had a son from a previous relationship, 19-year-old Diego, who lived with them. He also had his mother living in the apartment. So this wasn't just a nuclear family situation. This was a household with multiple dynamics, multiple relationships, multiple potential witnesses to what was really happening. To Marilyn's hundreds of thousands of followers, Alexander seemed like a great husband. He appeared regularly in her videos, participating in couples challenges, dancing with her, making jokes, playing the role of the supportive partner. The comments on their videos were full of people saying things like relationship goals and "you two are so cute together." People envied what they had. But the reality couldn't have been more different. According to family members who spoke out after Marilyn's murder, Alexander had been physically abusing her for years. He was pathologically jealous and obsessively controlling. And as Marilyn's social media presence grew, so did his rage. You see, for someone like Alexander, someone who needed to control every aspect of his partner's life, Marilyn's success was a threat. Every new follower was someone else looking at his wife, someone else admiring her, someone else potentially trying to take her away from him. Every comment from a male follower was, in his mind, evidence of infidelity. Every workout video she posted, every dance she shared, every moment she spent creating content was time she wasn't focused solely on him. He monitored her phone constantly. He controlled where she went and who she saw. According to reports, he even recruited their young son to spy on her, turning the child into an unwitting accomplice in his campaign of control. And when psychological control wasn't enough, he turned to physical violence. Here's what makes this particularly tragic. Marilyn had tried to get help. In 2012, 11 years before Alexander would kill her, she filed a domestic violence complaint against him at the San Borja police station. She went to the authorities. She reported what was happening. She took that terrifying, difficult step that so many abuse victims struggle to take. But she stayed in the relationship. Maybe she was afraid of what he'd do if she left. Maybe she hoped he would change. Maybe she stayed for their son or for financial reasons, or because leaving an abusive relationship is one of the most dangerous things a victim can do. Whatever her reasons, Marilyn remained trapped in a marriage that was slowly destroying her. As 2022 turned into 2023, and as Marilyn's TikTok presence exploded, Alexander's jealousy reached a critical point. He couldn't reconcile his need to control his wife with her growing independence and visibility. In his twisted logic, Marilyn's success was a personal betrayal, her fame an act of disrespect, and he was about to make her pay the ultimate price for daring to be her own person. January 15th, 2023. One day before everything ended. One day before an 11-year-old boy's world would be shattered forever. One day before Marilyn Martinez would cease to exist. On this day, Marilyn posted what would become her final TikTok video. The video featured Miley Cyrus's song, "Flowers," a track that had recently taken the world by storm with its message of self-love and female independence. The lyrics spoke to being complete without a partner, to loving yourself better than anyone else ever could, to finding strength and autonomy rather than dependency. Marilyn captioned the video as her message of the week, emphasizing themes of self-love and independence. Now, in isolation, this post means nothing more than an influencer sharing a trending song with an inspirational message. It's the kind of thing that happens thousands of times every day across social media. But context changes everything. And when you know that less than 24 hours after posting this video, Marilyn would be stabbed 30 times by her husband, it becomes something much more haunting. Was this Marilyn's way of asserting herself? After years of being controlled, monitored, and abused, was she finally starting to reclaim her autonomy? Was this video a declaration of independence, a public statement that she was her own person, that she didn't need Alexander to define her worth? Or was it simply a tragic coincidence? A woman sharing a song she liked, completely unaware that she had less than one day left to live? We'll never know what was in Marilyn's heart when she hit post on that video, but we do know this: hundreds of thousands of people saw it, and in all likelihood, Alexander saw it too. For a man who had spent over a decade trying to control every aspect of his wife's life, who had beaten her for daring to have her own thoughts and ambitions, who had filed away his rage every time a stranger online commented on her appearance, this video must have felt like the ultimate betrayal. Here was his wife, publicly celebrating independence, self-love, autonomy. Here she was, telling the world that she could love herself better than anyone else could. The subtext was impossible to miss. She didn't need him. And for someone like Alexander, that was unforgivable. January 16, 2023, started like any other day in the Martinez-Pinedo household. The apartment on Calle Correggio in Lima's San Borja district woke to its usual rhythms. Marilyn got up and prepared to head to the gym, part of the routine that fueled her content, part of the discipline that her followers admired. Alexander left the apartment at some point that morning as well. Where he went, what he thought about, what plans were forming in his mind, we don't know. But we do know that when he returned home, he was ready to end his wife's life. Around 10:30 a.m., Marilyn came back from the gym, calling out to Diego, Alexander's 19-year-old son, to help her with the door. She was carrying equipment and wanted to continue her workout at home. She headed upstairs to the living area where she kept her fitness machines. Diego helped her inside, then left for his own gym session. The apartment now contained Marilyn, their 11-year-old son, and Alexander's mother, who was in another room. Everything appeared normal, safe, routine. And then Alexander came home. According to court documents and Alexander's later statements, he immediately confronted Marilyn. He accused her of disrespecting him, of being unfaithful. The trigger, he claimed, was a phone call she had received from another man. What this phone call actually involved, whether it was truly inappropriate or whether Alexander was simply looking for an excuse to explode, we'll never know. The argument escalated quickly. They moved from the living area toward their bedroom, voices rising, tension building. And once they were behind closed doors, Alexander made his intentions clear. He told Marilyn he was going to kill himself so she could finally be happy without him. This kind of threat, threatening self-harm to manipulate and control, is textbook abuser behavior. It's designed to make the victim feel guilty, to force them into a position where they have to comfort the abuser, to reassure them, to back down from whatever boundary they were trying to set. But according to Alexander's account, Marilyn didn't respond the way he expected. She allegedly said something to the effect of, "Then kill yourself, it would be better for me." Now, we need to be very careful here. We only have Alexander's word for this, and people who commit these kinds of crimes are notorious for twisting the victim's words, for creating narratives that make their violence seem justified or provoked. We have no way of knowing if Marilyn actually said this or if she said something completely different that Alexander has distorted to serve his own purposes. But in that moment, whether Marilyn's words were as cold as he claimed, or whether he simply couldn't stand the idea that she might actually be better off without him, Alexander made his decision. He left the bedroom. He walked to a bookshelf in the hallway, and he retrieved a black military-style knife that he had stored there, a weapon he had ready, waiting, perhaps for this exact moment. Then he returned to the bedroom where Marilyn waited, and he attacked. What happened in that bedroom over the next several minutes was nothing short of butchery. This wasn't a single moment of rage, a flash of violence that ended as quickly as it began. This was sustained, deliberate, brutal. Alexander stabbed Marilyn approximately 30 times. He stabbed her legs as she tried to move away. He stabbed her arms and hands as she tried to defend herself. He stabbed her abdomen, her chest, targeting vital organs. He stabbed her in the genital area, an act of profound violation that speaks to his desire not just to kill her, but to degrade her, to punish her for daring to be sexual, to be desirable, to be anything other than his property. And finally, he cut her throat, a deep wound that went from right to left, from below upward, severing the structures that kept her alive. Marilyn screamed. She fought. She bled. And in another room, their 11-year-old son heard his mother's screams. The boy had been in his grandmother's room playing PlayStation, living in the innocent world of childhood where the most important thing is winning the next level. But his mother's screams shattered that innocence forever. He ran toward his parents' bedroom, and when he arrived, he saw something no child should ever see. His mother on the bed or beside it, covered in blood, and his father standing over her with a knife in his hand. The child was terrified, traumatized, unable to process what he was witnessing. He did the only thing he could think to do. He ran. He fled the apartment and raced downstairs to find the building's security guard, desperately trying to get help for his dying mother. The guard, alerted by the child's panic, rushed up to apartment 203. He entered the bedroom and saw the horror. Alexander still standing there with a knife, Marilyn's body on the floor in a pool of blood. The guard quickly retreated and ran out to the street, where he flagged down a motorcycle police officer who was passing by. Officer Jorge Gerson Diaz Mondragon entered the apartment and found Alexander in the living room. And here's what's remarkable. Alexander didn't try to run. He didn't try to hide the knife or claim it was an accident or make any attempt to save himself. He simply confessed on the spot. He told the officer he had killed his wife and that he would cooperate with the investigation. Emergency services arrived, but it was far too late. Marilyn was pronounced dead at the scene. The woman who had inspired thousands with her dedication and authenticity, who had built a platform on health and wellness, who had dreamed of a better future for herself and her son, she was gone. In the days following the murder, Alexander participated in a crime scene reconstruction, a procedure where the accused returns to the scene to walk investigators through what happened. And what Alexander did during this reconstruction is chilling. He insisted that reporters record him. He wanted his confession on camera. He wanted the world to hear his version of events. And in that recorded statement, Alexander calmly, methodically, almost casually described how he had murdered his wife. He talked about seeing her bone exposed during the stabbing. He admitted that afterward he had briefly considered taking his own life but couldn't go through with it. He called himself a coward for not killing himself, as if his death could somehow balance the moral equation, as if dying would have made him something other than a murderer. The video of this confession spread across Peru and Latin America, generating shock and outrage. Here was a man who had just committed an unspeakably brutal crime, speaking about it with cold detachment, almost seeking attention for what he'd done. Even in confession, even after everything, Alexander was still trying to control the narrative, still trying to make people understand his perspective, still trying to justify the unjustifiable. Alexander Israel Paneto Barón was charged with femicide, a specific crime under Peruvian law that recognizes the gender-based nature of violence against women in intimate relationships. The charges included aggravating factors, great cruelty, the ambush-like nature of the attack, and initially, the presence of a minor during the crime. On January 18th, prosecutors requested 9 months of preventive detention, and 2 days later, a judge granted it. Alexander would await trial behind bars. The trial took place before the Second Collegiate Criminal Court of the Superior Court of Justice of Lima. Prosecutor Patricia Huachamberg Vélez de Vila, who specializes in violence against women and family members, led the prosecution. Marilyn's estate was represented by lawyer Enrique Luis Acon Rojas. Alexander's defense was handled by attorney Cesar Luis Flores Inga. During the trial, Alexander admitted responsibility for killing Marilyn. He accepted the basic facts and acknowledged owing civil damages. However, he disputed certain details, particularly whether his son was technically present during the killing, arguing he didn't know the boy was nearby when the attack began. This partial admission triggered what's called a conclusion anticipada, similar to a plea agreement, which can result in a reduced sentence when the defendant accepts responsibility and avoids a lengthy trial. The prosecution asked for life imprisonment and 800,000 sols in damages. But on October 19, 2023, the court reached a different conclusion. They found Alexander guilty of femicide with the aggravating factor of great cruelty, but declined to apply the aggravating factor related to the child's presence due to technical legal arguments. Taking into account Alexander's lack of prior criminal record and his acceptance of responsibility, the court sentenced him to 25 years in prison, running from January 16, 2023 to January 15, 2024, 2048. He was also stripped of parental authority over his son and ordered to pay 400,000 sols, approximately $105,000, in damages to Marilyn's estate. 25 years. By the time Alexander walks free, he'll be 71 years old. But Marilyn will still be dead, and their son will still carry the trauma of what he witnessed for the rest of his life. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of this case, beyond the murder itself, is what happened to Marilyn's son afterward. Marilyn's mother and sister immediately fought for custody, arguing that the child should not remain in the apartment where he had witnessed his mother's murder, that he should not be raised by his killer's family. But according to reports, Alexander's parents took the boy to live with them in that exact apartment. The same rooms, the same hallways, the same bedroom where his mother had bled to death. The public outcry was significant, but the legal battle was complex. As of the available information, it's unclear how this custody dispute was ultimately resolved. But what is clear is that this child faces a future shadowed by trauma, growing up without his mother, knowing his father killed her, having witnessed the violence that ended her life. The case of Marilyn Martinez became emblematic of a crisis that continues across Latin America. The epidemic of femicide, the murder of women by intimate partners, the deadly consequences of jealousy and control. Peru alone saw over 130 femicides in 2022. Behind each statistic is a woman like Marilyn, someone with dreams, ambitions, people who loved her. Marilyn's case also revealed something uniquely modern: the danger faced by women whose social media success threatens their partner's sense of control. The disconnect between the perfect life displayed online and the violence hidden behind closed doors. The way carefully curated content can mask years of abuse. To her followers, Marilyn and Alexander looked happy. They seemed like relationship goals. But the reality was that every video they made together, every smile Alexander gave to the camera, was a lie. And Marilyn was trapped in that lie, unable or unwilling to shatter the illusion she'd helped create. Her final video, set to flowers, feels now like a message from beyond. A woman trying to reclaim herself, to assert her independence, to remind herself that she was enough on her own. But she never got the chance to truly be independent. Alexander made sure of that. Marilyn Yesenia Martinez Gonzalez was 29 years old. She was a mother, a fitness coach, an entrepreneur, an influencer who inspired thousands. She deserved a future. She deserved to see her son grow up. She deserved to love and be loved without fear. Instead, she became another statistic in a crisis that continues to claim women's lives across the world. Rest in peace, Marilyn. Your story matters, and you will not be forgotten.